Yo, what's up, guys? One of those developer notes, in my opinion, one of the less interesting developer notes, but I do have a few takes on it. I did not really plan to make a video on it at first, but I did have some talks with some guildies. But let's just look into it, what it kind of is. So first thing is, well, there's a whole bunch of pictures for it, but in simple words, you can set defenses here. You can use units you don't actually own, and you can test those defenses. I think the moment that this is released, everyone is going to try that once or twice and then never look at it again, except for the few guilds that actually do care about defense testing. But I do think that you could already defense test. For those guilds, I don't think much changes at all. That's one of those reasons where I would say that this doesn't really change all too much. I think it's kind of a waste of development resources that could have been put in making something more interesting or better for the game rather than adding in this, because in the end you could already test your defense. I did that for like a whole week straight the moment that Doubt got Legend, like a year ago or something like that. I was testing defenses for a whole week straight. Having this kind of system to test defenses wouldn't have changed anything for me. So for that reason, I personally think it is not interesting at all. A whole bunch of my guildies which are saying that they do like this idea a lot because maybe some people are low on mana. I can get that. Maybe you don't have specific units and therefore you can test them right now. Maybe so, but I think it also takes away that defense will become even weaker, whereas I can already say that offense is very strong, defense is pretty weak. So for that reason, I would also say that they would have to buff defense to be able to not select just your first skill that you're using, but maybe just put for every unit in which order they should use their skills or something like that. Because defense is going to be very weak right now and it's still very derpy and those kind of things. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know about this thing. I think it's kind of like a waste of resources, in my opinion, of, well, development resources. They could have done something a lot more interesting than adding in this. They could make Siege more enjoyable to play, split the runes for Siege, do something like that, do something about the 2v1s, make matchmaking better, or I don't know, like there's a whole bunch of things that they could have done for Siege, which probably would have made it better, in my opinion, rather than this, because I think this is something that 99.99% of the players are not really going to be actively using. It's the same as the whole COA tower. 99.99% of the players are not doing that content because it's just not rewarding enough. It's not fun enough. It's just an RNG fuckfest, simply said. And I can honestly say that because I was the first one to clear 100. How can you be the first one to clear 100? Well, just put a lot of time in it. It's not even that hard. It's just putting a lot of time in it, and you're gate capped by having or not having certain units. And it's just waiting for the right RNG moment. So is that really fun content? I don't know. Is it rewarding? No. Are people liking to play it? No. So I think they're wasting a lot of development resources on things that 99.99% of the players are not going to use. And I think this is probably one of those as well. Then the next thing which will influence everyone is that they changed the map. But did they change the map for the better, or did they change the map for the worse? Because I would say, I've been talking to the Siege leads that we have that always look at the map, like Bernard Carter, Aliatil. Those guys really do know what they're talking about. Those guys really do know what they're talking about when it comes to the Siege map. Me personally, not. So I will be going mostly with the points that they have been giving. And pretty much they came to the conclusion that this is probably going to make 2v1 worse instead of making 2v1 better. And why is that? Well, there's a few things to it. The 4 tower is now so important that it's connecting to everything. Well, except for the 12, but it's connecting to everything else except the 11 and the 12 and the 6. Okay, and the 7. But I would say that if you're from this side, it's already almost connecting to nearly everything. Getting that 4 tower is so important, and if you want to 2v1, all you gotta do is get that 4 tower and you can go for cuts all the time. This also means that you can go for cuts way earlier than you could before. So with that in mind, it is so much easier if you really want to bully one guild to bully one guild. And 2v1 is really an issue. I do know in Europe you have quite a lot of 2v1s. I'm not sure in global if it happens a lot, but I do know that if you have two guilds from the same speaking language, they mostly tend to team up against that one guild that is not from that language as well. You have that a lot in Asia server as well. I do know that I do know that they have a lot of problems with that of specific Asian countries teaming up against other Asian countries with the guilds and stuff like that. In Europe, it also kind of happens everywhere. So this is, I think, something that makes things worse because it is so important to get that 4 tower right now that, yeah, it's pretty much to the point that you have to put your best defenses in the 4 tower. Also, a lot of the previous sieges were played around the 10. Well, this was the 10 before, now it is the 9. But currently, this tower doesn't bring that much because it's only connected to 2 other towers. So it becomes a very weird, not interesting tower. And the thing is, if you want to play a 1v1v1 siege, you can't really go for the 4. So you have to choose because you're not going to go for the 4 on both guilds, most likely. That does also mean that you have to choose, okay, which guild do I start hitting on that 4? If then the other guild joins in on that one or joins in on you because that guild is also hitting your 4, you're kind of forcing a 2v1. I think this is a lot more 2v1 focused than the previous map was. Of course, these are just speculations. We don't know exactly yet how this will run out. But I do think that it's, yeah, I don't know. Plus, you don't have the diagonal things in here anymore, which you had with the towers over here before, which did give, like, I would say, slightly bit of a faster pace for retaking. And now it's just going to be 2-hour sessions every time because there's no diagonal thing, because it's going to be very simple. You're gonna drop this tower down and you're gonna take both. And if you would take both on the side back, then it doesn't matter. So yeah, I don't know. It's just too much like back and forth without any like, yeah, like strategical play. It's just like, oh, you take my tower, I take your tower, and then we're gonna cut the whole line kind of thing. But there's no diagonal things anywhere, so you can't really cut or wait for good timing. It's just going to be a 2-hour session of like, okay, one guild has both, and then the other guild has both, because that is the way to do it, so to keep the longest uptime of like your bonus and that kind of shit. But I think it's just going to be all very weird. Also, it is possible to already pretty much full cut the whole guild by 2 p.m. So if you go, let's say you take the 10, an hour later you take the 4, then an hour later you can go for the cut. So you could full cut a guild by 2 p.m., which I think is kind of absurd. Plus, I don't think it necessarily makes things any faster, but it just makes things more stressful for the siege lead to be looking at the map, like always checking like, oh, is my 4 gonna get cut? If they do, at what moment do they randomly start getting a cut in, because they can easily tech the 1 and the 2, which I think it just makes things more stressful. So I'm not really sure if it is really the right way. Things that they could have changed, in my opinion, I would say, especially for the end of the season, the last 4 sieges, just make them the 1v1. Simple as that. That is definitely a change that I think they could make. Sure, matchmaking should be a little bit tighter then, because if you keep playing into the rank 1 when you're rank like 15, you're gonna lose that, of course. But let's play like few people, like a few ranks outside of your normal rank and something like that, and then just have like a 1v1. Things they could also do is make the timer of the tower shorter, like 45 minutes, something like that. Definitely would improve quite some. Another thing that they could definitely do is split the runes. They split the runes for World Guild Battle right now, but I don't think people care enough about World Guild Battle to actually do something with it all too much. So I would say splitting the runes for Siege does enable lower players, or that players that just don't have that much rune quality or that many units, to be able to play Siege as well. So probably there's a whole bunch of suggestions that you might give as well. Let me know those in the comments, and let me know what you guys think about those changes. And if you think that the defense thing, are you actually going to be, let me know in the comments as well. I'm very curious if you're actively going to test defenses right now more than you could have in the past, or are you just going to try it once or twice and then never look at it again? Because I think there's going to be a lot of that second. And let me know what you think about the Siege map, because I do think that this is very 2v1 heavy focused, and which is not really a great thing. So those are my takes on it. Pretty short video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab, which has the dungeon guide archive and the video guide archive, which contains all of the guides that you need. Hope to see you there.